He does.
All right, I do have an actual question for you. I know people here want AEW talk. That's what they come for. But
sure.
With Jimmy Jacobs gone,
Yeah.
what does AEW need to do to get their creative into the next gear?
They just, to be honest with you, they need to be on the same page. And what I mean by that is that, I feel like AEW right now creatively is comprised of a couple different islands. You have like this universe and that universe and that universe. And like, there's nothing wrong with variety on a wrestling show. I like having different things and changing the pace up. But broadly, when you're doing like the type of angle that like this Moxie angle is, and it's so encompassing, whether you want to or not, you have to have it inform what you're doing on your section of the show. Because if not, if that top angle that's supposed to like kind of spark plug your company right now, if that doesn't succeed, nobody wins anyway. So you can't be selfish and be like, well, that's this guy's, that's this producer's shit. I'm worried about my shit. No, it has to inform your stuff in some way. I'll give you guys a little bit of a mini scoop here. There were talent.
Hold on, mini scoop. Hold on. I do have a button for things like this. Hold on.
Cool.
Breaking news.
Sorry, I had to show off the new button. Go ahead.
Should recreate that thing. It says brace for impact still.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah. So like there were talent at TV that had planned pre-tapes that were stressing what I was stressing throughout this morning on Twitter, which is essentially, hey, this has to affect what we have in some way. So we should like rewrite this or change this so to reflect that. And that's like pretty vague terms, but I hope you guys get what I mean by that. Like, because here's the thing: even if you're not directly fighting with Jon Moxley, if Jon Moxley is targeting your whole company, then he's coming for you at some point. And at the end of the day, he is terrorizing your place of business, your place of work, and that should affect you or make you mad, or you should have some type of feeling on that. There should be some type of response, some type of acknowledgement verbally. So getting the creative on track, it's just everyone has to buy in, everyone has to lock in, and this John thing really has to be nailed. If this thing fucking sucks the way that like the Elite Takeover did like a couple months ago, that's another setback, to be completely honest with you. That's the thing with taking a big swing. When you take a big swing like that, if it doesn't land, like you also hurt yourself too, I think.
100%.
So that has to land, and you have to take the necessary measures to make it land, which means that it has to inform other parts of the show. There has to be this overarching bleak sense of just unease across the show. And the way I explained it on Twitter was basically AEW, the promotion, is going to run Dynamite business as usual. However, in spite of the show being presented as normal, there should be this weird tension going around like the locker room when like the talent are being spoken to by Renee or Katie or whoever the talking head is. There has to be the feeling of unease that like maybe this match is going to get interrupted, and the baby faces should always be seen almost strategizing or having a backup plan to make sure that doesn't happen. I also wrote that right now, the premise is basically the faces are fighting on behalf of the soul of AEW, and Jon Moxley's trying to remake the promotion that he finds unrecognizable. That's totally fine. That's a good premise. The thing is, by week 5, 6, 7, unless you develop that and develop the individuals within it, it's going to get tedious and boring. You know what I mean? Like the individuals have to have some distinguishing factors within this conflict that separate them, because otherwise it's like, what's the difference between Darius Martin to Andretti or one of the private party guys? They're all just gonna be faceless, a jobber adjacent dudes getting their asses kicked by Marina Shafir and Claudio Castagnoli. And in every good war movie or war story, right? To make you care when half of these characters fucking die at the end of the movie. They establish interpersonal dynamics and create little mini plots within the people so that like they're, what I mean, like they're more fleshed out. You know what I'm saying? So that has to be nailed, and that's just for the John stuff. That's beyond like all the basic criticism stuff that we've been saying for the longest time, like being consistent with people's follow-ups, consistent with pushes, and just broadly having a plan. If you adhere to a plan and set out to it, it makes your creative much easier. But if the shows come off like they've been changing direction week to week to week, like it really felt like during the Wrestle Dream build, then
Mm-hmm.
you're going to run into the same issues.
I agree 100% from a storytelling perspective. Like we talked about how this BCC storyline is has some NWO vibes to it. Just like you talked about, like when you watch those WCWs from '96 when the NWO first came in, it was like a dark cloud that hung over the show, right? And it did permeate all the storylines. And they did, like you said, like it went from what's next, like what are these guys doing, to the story of well, who's going to join them? And then it became like, okay, well, what's Sting going to do? And for the first year of that storyline, it progressed and it moved, and they allowed it to change and grow, and it kept viewers interested. The problem is after year one, it shit the bed, and they didn't know what to do with it. So I agree with you 100%. Like this has to be the overarching storyline of the company right now, and everything has to reflect and kind of revolve around it. Like John Moxley is the son at this point, and everything's got to move around him in some way, shape, or form. And to ignore it is literally to put it in a different planet right now.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is just, again, because the reason why I say it has to inform other parts of the show is if you don't have that, it's going to just trivialize the conflict, because if other major characters don't give a shit about what John's doing, then it's like any other wrestling storyline. Then it's just, that's the guy that comes out for his segment to fight the guys he's fighting. And how does that make that stand out any more from any other angle? And so it has to affect everybody, at least in some respect. It doesn't have to be overtly, like, I'm not saying that at the start of Dynamite, every single character needs to be abandoned on the stage, you know what I mean? Like running out there to fight. Like, no, you don't got to do that, but like, it should just affect the show. Like the show should feel affected by it and changed by it.
Mike talked earlier about how it bothered him that Will Ospreay didn't say anything last week about this particular storyline. So I think Mike is right. Like all Ospreay has to do is pay mind of it, and maybe he wants to do something, but then like the Callis people do something to him to keep him away from it. Like at least it's addressed and it helps progress the main storyline, your A story, forward in some respects. So I think I've kind of come around to your way of thinking, Mike, that it needs to be addressed with him somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. He's the top babyface in the company now that Danielson's gone. He should at least acknowledge that Moxley is running around. So he should be like, as soon as I get done with this Callis fuck and Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher, I'm coming for John Moxley and that World Heavyweight Championship. Like he has his primary feud, but he should still have his eye on Moxley because he's the top heel in the company.
Especially since Will is like Mr. like AEW.
Yeah.
And he's super rah-rah, like waving the banner.
Yeah. Hey, we just got another super chat. I don't know why this person wants to know this from you, but this is Brainbuster.
Okay.
It says, "Hey Ibou, thoughts on Yokozuna from versus Savage from 1994?"
Brainbuster rules. He super chats on our shows, and
okay.
What I like about Brainbuster is he breaks up the monotony of like really like dull, like annoying questions I'll get on like my shows sometimes. Like people like, "Hey Ibou, like what are your thoughts on like, I don't know, just like something like really, hey, do you have an update on Garcia's contract?" And I'll be like, "Well, yeah, the update is that there is no update." And then like you'll get like that a bunch, and then like Brainbuster will pop in and be like, "So who do you think was a better top guy in All Japan, like Tenryu or like Jumbo?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I thought I kind of preferred Tenryu, but Jumbo was like the guy." And so I do like Brainbuster. The match you mentioned here, Yokozuna and Randy Savage, I haven't seen it in a long time, but I vaguely remember it being like I vaguely remember it being very good and Savage's last strong WWF match, and like notably better than his WrestleMania 10 match against, I think it was Crush.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it was a no holds barred
match,
or last false count anywhere match.
Yeah.
And Randy Savage hung him upside down or something like that, and then ran to the
right.
ring.
Yeah, that was okay, but like I remember this Yokozuna match being really, really dope.
I remember I always think of Savage and Yokozuna because they were the last two people in the '93 Royal Rumble, and Savage hits the elbow from off the top and then tries to pin Yokozuna in a Royal Rumble. And then it's cool because Yoko flips off, but it's like, why did Savage has been in how many of these things and he just forgets the rules all of a sudden? That always bothered me.